Hello everyone and welcome to the Dyslexia Ireland Back to School webinar. I am Emma McGee. I am the Senior Educational Psychologist and we are joined as well with Sachita, who is a educational psychologist, and we work with Dyslexia Ireland, and we're hoping to give you a few tips and ideas of supporting and preparing your child returning to school this week or next week. So we're going to go through some of how to help manage school anxieties, particularly after COVID, as well as then looking through some of the specific strategies for dyslexic students, such as learning support, technology, and Irish and language support. Okay, I'm going to hand you over now to Sachita, and she's going to bring us through our anxiety piece.
Great, thanks Emma. So I think when talking about anxiety, I think we can all agree that this has been a particularly stressful time for everyone. It's very unprecedented. The world has never experienced a pandemic to this level before, and has led to changes in all of our lives. And of course, for children, it's been very disruptive since their routine to school was stopped, and now it's been 6 months since they've been back to school. And even now when they are returning to school, there are lots of changes that are going to be in place. So including sanitization stations, maybe they might not be allowed to bring in certain items. They might have to socialize in smaller groups. So it's a very, very different scene to what they're used to. Families may have also experienced significant loss themselves, or trauma or stressful times due to finances because of the pandemic. So all in all, even as a family, it has been a difficult time to cope. And now when thinking about children with dyslexia in particular, or anyone, most of us can experience stress and anxiety, but children with dyslexia can be particularly vulnerable. And this could be related to the nature of their learning difficulties. There's generally a tendency to blame themselves for difficulties, or they might have lower sense of self-esteem, and this kind of makes them vulnerable or makes it harder for them to tolerate the challenges of school. They also might have been comparing themselves to siblings or classmates. And in general, so COVID might have been quite an unusual situation for certain children, because that might have led to being at home might have actually been helpful for them. It might have been less stressful to be going to school or having to work in larger groups. So returning to school could be particularly anxiety provoking for children with dyslexia right now. So hopefully we can provide you with some tips then for managing some of these anxieties related to going back to school. So let's go back. So when we think of strategies, I think the first thing is to really go back to the basics. And the basics are our basic needs of sleep, food, and exercise. So again, something that might seem very obvious, but sometimes children are not getting enough sleep, or they might be having very disrupted sleep because their routines might have been influenced during being at home, as well as diet can have been affected. They might not be getting enough access to nutrients. And when children are anxious as well, if particularly leading up to going back to school time, this might again affect their sleep and appetite. So one of the most basic ways is to kind of ensure that the routines are getting set up again. And this means checking to see if they're getting enough sleep and exercise and food, a balanced diet. And one great thing to add to an exercise routine could be relaxation exercises, because relaxation is one of the most basic tools to help manage anxiety. And it's a great self-soothing strategy to learn, and it calms the nervous system. And the earlier children start to learn these and do them for themselves, the better it is. So bringing that into a daily routine is a great way to get them using some of those tips, using that as a tool. It could even just be 5-10 minutes every day, but making it a regular part of their life is, I think, would be very vital. The other really important part about when we're talking about anxiety, and I actually think this is the most essential thing, it's number one step when responding to anxiety, is to actually listen, normalize, and empathize. So asking the child what is making them worried, and telling them that it's very normal to have concerns. And this might mean setting up a regular time and place to talk. So it might be difficult to just be doing it in the hustle and bustle of the daily life. So setting aside a time for this. And this might be different for every child. Some children might find it better in a private space where they have your complete attention, maybe before sleep, just before bed. And other children might like it as a part of when doing something else. So maybe taking a walk or going for a drive in the car, so that it can reduce the intensity of the feeling as well. And why is empathizing so important? Because it's the first way to validate what the child is feeling. And it involves being able to listen without any judgment and without offering any solutions. So avoiding statements like, it's going to be fine, or don't worry, it's nothing to worry about. Those statements, we often use them, we all use them, but it often it ends up leading to that feeling being dismissed, or giving the sense that it's not really something to worry about. So using even statements like, that really sounds really difficult, I would feel the same. So just a simple statement like that can immediately make the child feel that don't feel that they're not alone, and that their feelings are valid. And this simple step often is enough to help them regulate and organize their feelings. And this also allows the child to lean into the feelings, to stay with them along with someone else there, so they're not as scary or difficult or big. For other children, maybe talking about it is it, for some children, maybe talking about it is enough. For others, maybe some sort of non-verbal, a hug or a calm, soothing tone of voice is also just making sure that you're looking at your child and providing all the non-verbal cues of empathy is also important. So with this first step of really meeting your child, making them feel that their feelings are valid, the next piece can be then to move on to providing a way to problem solve, or helping your child use logic to solve the problem that is anxiety provoking. And this is only really possible once the child is in a place to be able to do this. So if their feelings are very heightened, then it might not be something that they're ready to do. So that might mean going back to the listening and the validating. But once the child is calm enough, then you could try actually sitting down and having a problem solving. There are ways you can write these down as steps. There are ideas online as well. But just being able to say things like, let's think of ways you can handle that, or what's the worst thing that can happen. We can think about the different options then. And this can really help the child interpret or cope with the scary situation, and provide them with some practical tools. So yeah, what's key there is, again, to avoid the reassurance that this again comes very naturally. We all tend to say, don't worry, or things will be fine. But if we can avoid that reassurance and move to problem solving, that will help the child in the long run, because reassurance then also starts becoming something that the child depends on to manage the anxiety, and then and it's not something they can always rely on. So another great way, another practical way that that has been suggested often, and that's a great way to visualize some of the strategies that a child might have, is to actually make a coping toolkit. So this could mean maybe drawing it out with the child, or having a board up on the wall with different ideas and visuals, and this is just so that they have a space, a place where all the different tips and strategies are written down, so that they know they can go to it when they are in a feeling of distress. And this could be very personalized. So it could include a range of things that help them, different strategies that help them cope. So for some children, it could be baking or gardening or going for a walk, or listening to music. So you just have a whole bunch of ideas together in one place. Another idea that's associated there is using a worry box. So this basically just involves children being able to write down their worries on a slip of paper and putting them into the box. And then we can set aside a time to talk through them. And this can be especially useful if, for some children, those worrying thoughts can be quite intrusive and they might be thinking about them all the time. So it could be a good way to try to make them postpone that worry and have a particular time when they can talk about it. Another good way sometimes for children, when it's specific situations that might be causing anxiety, could be to role play the situation itself. So this could be, for example, now when going back to school, maybe some children are worried about having to read in front of class again, or maybe meeting a new teacher, or having to do an exam, or when their peer might not be next to them. So if you have specific situations and the child has told you about, you can actually role play them and act them out, and then model appropriate responses and things that they could say. So if they've already practiced these with you in advance, that's something that they can easily then draw on when they are in the situation. Perhaps even being able to think about redirecting or taking the attention away from the worries and towards some positives could be a good technique to use. For children with dyslexia, maybe that might mean focusing on things that aspects of school that they do enjoy. Maybe it's the social aspects, meeting their friends, or things that they are good at, or subjects that they're good at, or maybe they enjoy art or they enjoy sports. So reminding them about some of those more fun sides or the positive sides of schools that they do enjoy, so that we're kind of taking them away from just the negative bits that they're afraid of. Finally, what's really important, of course, is looking at yourself and the parents themselves. What is your own behavior like? Are you anxious about them going back to school? Have you been able to self-care or take care of your own levels of anxiety? Children are very quick at looking at what's going on around them, as well as taking cues from parents. So the more you can model confidence and comfort and being firm, the more the children will also feel, will take on some of that energy or vibes from you. So again, this might mean even saying, I like this term of being supportive, but firm. So again, being able to speak in a calm voice, but also not giving in to their anxiety by being anxious yourself or taking it on yourself. So that will really involve monitoring your own levels, ensuring your own self-care, so that you have the capacity to support your child. And this might mean for you to recognize that you might need some support, you might need someone else's help, and if things are getting a bit overwhelming for you yourself. And this might, of course, it's very important to point out that if some of these basic tips and strategies are not working, and if your child is particularly overwhelmed, then it might mean seeking professional support for them, or even talking to the school, letting the school know, someone in the school know that my child is particularly anxious at this moment. So the school has also set up supports. So it might mean talking to a counselor the first few weeks, or ongoing, or having someone that they can turn to in school as well, one supportive adult. So linking in with the school will be important for all of this. Great, so we've just put together a few resources. There's loads of stuff online, but we've just put together a few things that we thought would be useful when we're talking about anxiety. And this is a good place to start with. So for example, anxietycanada.com is a great one for lots of resources, which most of them are free on their website. And one of these is a timeline leading up to school, which actually provides different steps that parents can do a week before the school starts, a few days before, and even when school starts itself, maybe a few weeks into school. So it's a good checklist to kind of go through, just to get any ideas of tips, or, different steps that you can take. Another great resource that the Anxiety Canada website has is a cognitive coping cards, and we've included a link there for you. It explains a little bit more about how these can be made. But essentially, these are small index cards with sentences with coping skills that a child can use. So again, similar to what we were talking about before, the toolbox, this is another way that the child can have these handy portable reminders to whip out whenever they feel overwhelmed, just to give them some ideas. Because often when children are highly anxious, or they might have forgotten some of the strategies they can use, and also if there's no one else around to remind them. So those are great, I think, because they can also be personalized, and the child can make them themselves, and it's important to do that because then they'll have ownership over it, and they'll feel more empowered to use them. Social stories are a great way, I think, again, to help cope with anxiety or worries. Often they use these are techniques used for children with autism, but I think they can be used for any child, as they're visual, and they easily they explain complexities of situations in easy words, and they're concrete, and the story format is accessible and fun. So what I've included here is some more specific examples around COVID related situations. There are loads of them online. So the As I Am website has some of them on COVID, as well as the NCSC has different ones related to social stories in relation to maybe going for a test or wearing a mask, things like that could be difficult for children. And of course, these are the things that you can just make on your own. You can adapt it to your own specific situation that a child might be experiencing. And it's just a good way especially for young children to be able to read about the situation, and have some positive coping techniques there. So apart from that, quickly also to mention that the anxietycanada.com also has articles on talking to your children about COVID, which I thought was quite useful because they have specific words and terminology that can be used, because sometimes it's difficult to explain something that's complex to children. So they've got scripts that parents can use to explain what the situation is at the moment. So that's quite useful. Apart from that, apps then are a great resource to help work with anxiety, and there are loads of them again online and on iPads. And apps are a great way because again they're handy and they're visual, they're multi-sensory, so that they'd be good for children with dyslexia, if they have pictures and not too much written format, and they also have podcasts or audios that the children can listen to. And a good one that we came across is one provided by the Insight Center. This was Insight Center, which is in Ireland, which is in Dublin. And it's a good resource because they have podcasts, they have short exercises, including relaxation exercises, and they also have videos. Most of these are available for free, and some are available for premium members. But it's good because it's targeted both. It has options for teenagers as well as for parents. Finally, the International Dyslexia Association is a good place to also read up a little bit, because they have a section on explaining what anxiety can seem for or look like for children with dyslexia. And they also talk about a de-stress model, which is a step-by-step guide to addressing stress and anxiety for children with dyslexia. And they include some of the things we already talked about, but it's a nice way to, it's a good place to, because they've made an association with how anxiety might present for children with dyslexia in particular.
Okay.
Great, so I'm going to hand it back to you, Emma.
Thank you very much, Satya, for that. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with this and just talk through some of the more dyslexia-related areas. Firstly, some of the areas to help with organisation, because as we know, this can be a huge difficulty. For students with timetables, making sure that you make lots of copies of this, laminated, and even colour-coded per subject. And this is where you can use those large zippy folders for every single subject, and have, say, the res folder for maths, and maths is highlighted in res on the timetable. Revision books and exam papers are a great thing to purchase now at this time of the year. So exam papers are actually all freely available on the examinations.ie website. And if you're looking for some dyslexia-friendly revision books, just get in contact with us. We have a list of the most up-to-date ones that I suppose are just more dyslexia-friendly. Colours, pens and highlighters are a lovely addition to the pencil case. And these can be used for things like reading comprehension, for breaking up a task into different pieces, and just makes things a little bit more visual and therefore more multisensory. Having an actual separate to-do notebook can be a really good way as well to help organize all the different tasks that your child might have to do, both kind of short-term and long-term goals. And this is where you can get a nice sort of fancy notebook from Tiger, Sostengren or Smiggle, and use that then to keep track of all of the important tasks that are, in the diary. Finally, then, getting onto the companies, the different publishers, to access the ebooks. So if you were bought the actual physical book, you can also, or you're entitled to also access the ebook for free as well. And this can be a great way to help if your child is having difficulties remembering to bring books home with them. At least you know that, okay, well, the history book, the geography book are available on the iPad at home. It also means that they can access, they can use different tech supports to access, like the read aloud software on it, which can be a nice way of again making it more multisensory. If you've recently had an assessment done, or you have a new report, or you're moving into a new school, it's a good time now or within the next few weeks to try to arrange a meeting with your learning support or class teacher to go through some of the goals or the targets for the year, and also to maybe, ask them questions about learning support and what it might look like. And then throughout the year, don't forget that regular communication is really, really important to make sure that what they're doing at school complements maybe what you're doing at home, or if you have a private tutor, or if you're attending a workshop. Really, really good idea to keep regular communication there. It would be a great idea as well to make copies of the report and send it into the school, because you want to keep hold of a copy of that report yourself. So you want to give a copy of that into the school. If you're in secondary school, make sure that every teacher knows that your child has dyslexia or different learning needs by informing them, I suppose, that there is a report on file, or even, I suppose, doing up a very quick letter for each of the teachers, just outlining some of the areas of strength and the areas of need, or what way could they maybe help to support your child's learning within the classroom, whether it's giving them a reading list beforehand, or letting them take a photograph of the board. Because I think one of the issues that we often come across, or we've often heard about, is that information, it can be difficult to get to every single teacher within your child's school at secondary school. Talking a little bit about the learning support and I suppose what to expect. There are typically 3 levels or 3 tiers of learning support, and so for most they are differentiation is an option. It's where the teacher differentiates the work or tries to make things a little bit more accessible. And this could be something simple like a shortened or different spelling list, or verbalizing the instructions a second time. Team teaching is a little bit more intense in that it involves an extra teacher coming into the class, and the children are typically broken up into smaller groups, maybe based on ability. So there is a smaller teacher-pupil ratio. Finally then, learning support is where a child would be removed from the classroom for maybe about 20 or 30 minutes a day, a few times a week, and they would go to the learning support room, usually with a few other students, and work on the likes of toe by toe or snip or a typing program. And they're basically working on those areas that would have been recommended within the report. I suppose it's important to point out here that no child with dyslexia is entitled to this learning support or that level of support. It is up to the discretion of the school and what they have available. And particularly now, this is going to be quite tricky with COVID and the working pods. But it is important just to, if it is something that's offered to you, to make a decision whether or not you want it or don't want it, because it's important to remember, when are they being removed from the classroom? So, for example, what are they missing? Are they always missing their favorite classes? Who else is in the group? What will they be doing? Do they actually like it? And therefore, is it actually worth it? Is it causing them too much stress to actually attend? And, if you feel like, it's not in your child's best interest, that's okay too. There are other additional outside school supports as well that you might prefer, or for example, if you don't get that support in school, these might be your only options of having additional outside school support. So one of them is the workshops, and these are run by ourselves all over the country, where a child will attend typically for about 2 hours once a week, and they're working with other children with dyslexia with specially trained teachers. And it can be a great way for them to, again, work on those specific skills of reading, spelling, computer skills, and also, working on kind of the self-esteem element as well, or just being with other children with dyslexia. Finally, private tuition can also be another option if the workshop is not available in your area. And it basically is where a teacher would attend your home for 1 hour, 2 hours a week, or whatever it is, and work on some of those specific areas. If you are looking for more information, our Details of our workshops are on our website, and you can contact us in relation to tutors in your area. We typically try to keep records of various teachers within different areas around Ireland, or indeed get in contact with your school to see if they have anyone. Looking at some of the technology options within school, I suppose there's two options here. The first one is that for some children with severe dyslexia, so around about the second percentile in areas of literacy, they can apply for a grant for the school to purchase technology. For children that don't meet this criteria, or that they were refused the grant, you can still use your own technology, and this would be a good idea to talk to the school about maybe bringing in your own technology, or even allowing them to use it at home for homework. So for example, typing up homework, using spell checker, using text-to-speech or speech-to-text software, using mind map software, like for example, Poplus is a lovely mind map app, or indeed using it for the likes of studying, revising through YouTube or TED Talks. Finally, I just want to touch on this area of Irish and language learning, because this can be quite a tricky area for students with dyslexia, particularly Irish, because it can be quite a hard language to learn, the reading and the writing aspects. So, for some students, they don't meet the criteria for the exemption, or indeed for a lot of students, they really enjoy Irish, but they find it quite hard. So it's really important to try to focus, I suppose, on the speaking and listening aspects of the language. And typically for students with dyslexia, they do quite well on these areas. And that will really help to develop the love of the language and their enjoyment of the subject. Flicking on Teachy Cahir at home, or letting them watch Irish television programs, again, can be a lovely way of, integrating or, allowing them to be immersed in the language. And then if you're looking for specific teaching strategies, one approach is to really build up the sight words in Irish. And again, you can have a look at schoolnet.ie for resources here. As well as the second strategy would be to build up the phonics skills in the Irish language. So Fuam U and Fuam C are different phonic apps that can be used to help support this area. Finally, I've just included 3 different websites here on different tech and app supports. And then Duolingo is a lovely website and app that helps to build proficiency within a language, and Irish is one of those languages. Just a final note on the Irish and language exemption, if this is something that you are considering, or indeed if your child is really struggling with the Irish language, talk to your principal about this and to see if your child meets the criteria. You do not need to have a psychology report. You just need to, it can all be now done within the school. So if you want more information about it, or, I suppose the process would be, the first step would be to talk to the principal about this. Okay, so thank you very much. I suppose that is the end of our webinar, and we hope that you've picked up a few tips and strategies for helping to support your child in these difficult few weeks. I suppose it can always be, it's always quite a difficult transition, and I think this year is particularly so with everything that's happened over the last few months. So thank you very much, and if you're looking for any more information, you can contact us on our social media pages or at info@dyslexia.ie.